The bank was quiet. Sunlight poured through the glass doors. The line was short. The mood was calm. Steven Seagal stepped forward and placed a check on the counter. $10 million. No drama, no attitude, just business. The manager picked it up slowly. She glanced at the amount. Her lips curled into a smirk. She looked at Steven, then back at the check. Then she did something no one expected. She tore it in half. Gasps filled the lobby. People froze mid-step. The silence was heavy. Steven did not move. He did not raise his voice. He did not argue. He simply watched. The manager leaned back in her chair as if she had just made a point, as if she had just won. But the room felt different, not loud, not chaotic, just tense, the kind of tension that comes right before something serious happens. Customers exchanged looks. A teller stopped counting cash. Security shifted their stance. Steven slowly lifted his eyes and met the manager's gaze. No anger, no ego, only calm control. In that moment, everyone felt it. Something had shifted. Something irreversible had begun. Not because of money, not because of power, but because of disrespect. That one careless action did not just destroy a piece of paper. It destroyed a career. It destroyed authority. It destroyed the illusion of control. And the manager did not know it yet, but she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Have you ever seen someone destroy their own career in seconds? It was a bright afternoon. Sunlight poured through the glass walls of the bank. The lobby felt calm and organized. Customers waited in line quietly. Some checked their phones. Some counted their documents. Some spoke softly to tellers. Nothing felt rushed. Nothing felt tense. It was the kind of day where everything felt routine and predictable. Steven stood in line like everyone else, dressed simply. No bodyguards, no spotlight, no special treatment. Just a man waiting his turn. He looked like any other customer. No signs of wealth, no signs of status, no signs that he was about to change the mood of the entire building. Behind the counter, the manager sat comfortably in her chair, confident, relaxed, in control of the space. She moved with authority. She spoke with certainty. She carried herself like someone who believed she owned the room. From her perspective, this was just another customer, just another transaction, just another ordinary moment in a long workday. Around them, the bank functioned like a machine. Printers hummed, cash drawers opened and closed, pens scratched across paper. Everything worked. Everything flowed. Everything felt safe. To anyone watching, nothing felt unusual. No warning signs, no red flags, no sense that anything was about to go wrong. And that is exactly why moments like this matter. Because real conflict does not begin with shouting. It begins with comfort. It begins with routine. It begins with people feeling untouchable. Disrespect often hides behind authority, behind uniforms, behind desks, behind titles. When someone feels powerful, they sometimes forget to be human. They forget empathy. They forget restraint. They forget that every person deserves dignity. This moment was calm. This moment was quiet. This moment was ordinary. And that is what made what came next so powerful. Because when a peaceful situation turns into a lesson, it is not the noise that shocks people, it is the contrast. The manager glanced at Steven's check. Her smile faded. Her eyes narrowed. She looked at the amount again, then at Steven, then back at the paper. "This is fake," she said loudly. Her voice cut through the calm lobby. A few heads turned. A few whispers began. The room shifted. Steven remained still. His voice was steady. "I assure you it is real." He did not argue. He did not explain. He did not raise his tone. The manager laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not an uncertain laugh. A confident laugh. A dismissive laugh. The kind of laugh meant to embarrass. The kind meant to establish dominance. She held the check between her fingers, slowly, deliberately. Then she tore it, not quickly, not accidentally, but carefully, as if she wanted everyone to see. The sound of paper ripping echoed across the lobby. Gasps followed. A woman covered her mouth. A man froze mid-step. The teller next to her stopped typing. The entire room went silent. Steven did not move. He did not blink. He did not react. He simply stood there calm, controlled, unshaken. The manager leaned back in her chair. Her posture said victory. Her expression said superiority. She had not just rejected a check. She had rejected a person. She had rejected respect. In that moment, it was no longer about money. It was about power. It was about ego. It was about control. She believed she had it. But the room felt different now. The energy had changed. The air felt heavier. People were no longer relaxed. They were alert. They were uncomfortable. They were watching. Because everyone understands one thing. When authority is abused publicly, it never ends quietly. Stephen finally lifted his eyes. He did not glare. He did not threaten. He simply looked. And that look carried something deeper than anger. It carried restraint. It carried certainty. It carried dignity. The manager did not notice it. She was too busy feeling powerful, too busy believing she had won. But she had just crossed a line, not a legal line, a human one. The kind of line that changes how a room feels, the kind that shifts the balance of respect, the kind that cannot be undone. And everyone in that lobby felt it. Not because of noise, not because of chaos, but because of the silence that followed. That silence was not empty. It was full of judgment, full of tension, full of anticipation. Something was coming. Have you ever watched someone abuse power in public? Stephen took a breath. Not a deep sigh, not a dramatic pause, just a controlled breath. In that moment he had options. He could walk out. He could argue. He could raise his voice. He could demand respect. He could make a scene. He could embarrass her. He could expose her instantly. But he did none of those things, because this was not about money. It was not about the check. It was not about proving anything. This was about respect. About dignity. About how power should be used. Stephen understood something most people forget. When someone disrespects you publicly, the fastest reaction is rarely the strongest. He did not let anger guide him. He did not let pride take control. He did not let ego speak for him. Instead, he chose restraint. He chose patience. He chose authority without noise. He looked at the manager calmly, not cold, not threatening, just firm. I would like to speak to your supervisor. His voice was even, no frustration, no emotion, no aggression, just certainty. The manager rolled her eyes. A clear sign of dismissal. A clear sign of disrespect. A clear sign she believed she was untouchable. She leaned back in her chair again. Her body language said control. Her expression said superiority. She believed she had already won. But Stephen was not playing a game. He was setting a boundary. There is a difference between reacting and responding. Reaction is driven by emotion. Response is driven by control. Stephen responded. Inside him there was conflict, not between fear and courage, but between ego and discipline. Ego wanted to speak. Discipline wanted silence. Ego wanted to prove. Discipline wanted justice. Ego wanted attention. Discipline wanted resolution. And discipline won. This moment mattered more than people realized, because the way someone handles disrespect reveals who they truly are. Most people raise their voice when disrespected. Some people become aggressive. Some people walk away defeated. Very few people remain calm while still standing their ground. Stephen stood his ground without noise, without threat, without force. That is real power. True power does not shout. It does not insult. It does not rush. True power waits. It waits for truth to reveal itself. It waits for authority to shift naturally. It waits for accountability to arrive. And in that quiet waiting, something begins to change. The room felt different now. People were watching more closely. Security was more alert. Tellers were whispering. Not because Stephen caused a scene, but because he did not. Silence created curiosity. Calm created tension. Control created authority. The manager did not see it yet. She still felt powerful. She still felt in charge. But power built on disrespect is never stable. It always collapses. Stephen knew this. That is why he did not argue. That is why he did not shout. That is why he did not react emotionally. He let the situation rise to the level it deserved, because sometimes the strongest move is not the loudest response, but the quiet request that changes everything. True power does not shout. It waits. The supervisor arrived. A tall man in a dark suit. Confident, sharp, professional. He walked quickly across the lobby, clipboard in hand. Eyes scanning the room. The manager straightened in her chair. Her posture screamed authority. Her voice carried across the lobby as she spoke first. "He is trying to scam us," she said. Her tone was sharp, accusatory, final. The customers froze. Some stared, wide-eyed. The air in the bank suddenly felt heavier, tense, expectant. Stephen remained calm, unshaken, unhurried. He reached into his pocket and handed over his identification. A simple gesture. No drama. No arrogance. The supervisor took the ID. He glanced at it quickly. Then again, then slowly began to read it more carefully. His eyes widened. A flicker of doubt crossed his face. His confident posture faltered just a little. A bead of sweat appeared on his temple. The manager noticed this but didn't realize the change had already begun. She still believed she was in control. The supervisor picked up the phone. A pause. He dialed. His fingers moved fast but not recklessly. The lobby went silent. Customers held their breath. The tellers stopped their tasks. Even the janitor paused mid-sweep. People could sense the shift. The calm authority Stephen carried now radiated outward. It was subtle but unmistakable. Every second that ticked by felt heavy. The manager's confident smirk began to fade. Her hands gripped the counter. Her chair squeaked as she shifted nervously. Stephen did not speak. He did not comment. He did not demand. He let the silence work. Let the uncertainty grow. Let the truth rise to the surface. The supervisor's voice came back, low and firm. He spoke to the manager first. Then he spoke into the phone. Each word was deliberate, measured, controlled. The tension in the room grew. It was not anger, it was realization. It was the slow recognition that the narrative she had built so confidently was crumbling before her eyes. Customers leaned slightly forward in their seats. Some whispered guesses. Some froze completely. Some exchanged glances. Even those who had never seen Steven Seagal in person felt the energy. The quiet power of control. The calm authority that demanded respect without force. And through it all, Stephen remained steady. Not a muscle twitched. Not a word was raised. Not a single action betrayed impatience. This was escalation without chaos. Tension without violence. Authority without ego. The manager's world was shifting. Her confidence eroded silently. Her dominance challenged not by anger or aggression, but by patience, dignity, and undeniable legitimacy. And in that silent, tense moment, everyone in the lobby understood something profound. Respect is earned. Power is demonstrated. Authority without integrity is fragile. The supervisor ended the call. He replaced the phone gently. He looked at Stephen with a new understanding. A subtle nod. The manager's smirk had vanished completely. She could no longer assert control. She had lost before anyone raised a hand. What would you think at this moment? Would you speak up? Would you remain quiet? Or would you realize that real authority does not need noise to be felt? The supervisor ended the call. He slowly lowered the phone, his hand trembling slightly, though he tried to hide it. His face had changed. The confident, professional mask that had carried him into the bank that afternoon was gone. No, there was surprise. Recognition, a quiet understanding of the magnitude of what had just happened. He turned his gaze towards Steven Seagal. For the first time, there was no doubt, no hesitation, just clarities. "Sir," he said, his voice low, firm, and respectful. The word echoed through the lobby. It was simple. One syllable. But it carried more weight than any shouted sentence could have. The manager's smirk vanished completely. Her confident posture crumpled slightly. A pale shock washed over her face. She had believed she was untouchable. She had believed she was in control. And now that illusion had shattered in seconds. "This check is legitimate," the supervisor continued, his eyes unwavering. He paused for a moment to let it sink in. "And this account belongs to him." The room held its breath. The customers, who had been watching from their lines and chairs, now sat frozen in disbelief. Some mouths hung slightly open, some leaned forward instinctively, as if the words themselves had weight. Even the tellers behind the counter stopped typing. The quiet hum of the bank's machine seemed to fade into nothing. Every eye was on Stephen, every ear strained to catch the unfolding truth. The manager's hands gripped the edge of her counter. Her knuckles whitened. She tried to speak, to protest, to explain, but no words came. Her authority had evaporated. Her confidence, built over years of assuming power, was gone. The customers sensed it too. The room's energy had shifted. Respect had been demanded without a single raised voice. Control had been asserted without a threat. Dignity had spoken louder than any insult. Stephen stood calmly, as he had the entire time, no anger, no ego, no satisfaction visible on his face. He simply nodded slightly to acknowledge the supervisor's confirmation. He did not gloat. He did not speak. He did not let the moment become about revenge. It was about clarity. It was about justice. It was about restoring balance. The manager finally found her voice, though it was weak. She stammered, searching for some excuse, some way to reclaim authority. But there was none. The supervisor's declaration had sealed her fate in that room. The customers murmured quietly among themselves. Some whispered about the magnitude of a $10 million check. Some whispered about the boldness of Seagal's patience. Some simply watched in awe at the calm, controlled way the situation had unfolded. Security officers, who had been tense and ready for action, now relaxed slightly. They had been prepared for chaos. They had expected conflict. They had not expected quiet authority to command respect. Stephen finally spoke, his voice calm and measured, breaking the silence just enough. "Thank you," he said softly to the supervisor. The supervisor nodded again. The manager sat back in her chair, pale and silent. The room exhaled collectively, as if holding its breath for the entire ordeal. This moment was not about money. It was not about status. It was about respect. It was about the power of calm control in a situation where chaos could have erupted. It was about the lesson that true authority does not need to assert itself with threats or anger. Everyone in the lobby understood something profound. They understood the difference between power and arrogance. They understood the cost of disrespect. They understood that control, patience, and dignity can shift an entire room with no violence at all. For a few quiet seconds, the bank was not a place of transactions. It was a classroom. A place where lessons about human behavior and respect were taught without a single harsh word. The manager sat stunned. The customers watched in awe. The tellers whispered softly among themselves, and Seagal's stood as the embodiment of controlled authority, the calm force that had turned what could have been a disaster into a moment of undeniable respect. If you were in that lobby, what would you have done? Would you have stayed silent, awed by his patience? Or would you have acted differently? This was the power of quiet authority, the power of discipline over ego, the power of respect over fear. The manager was escorted away. Her head hung low. Her pride had been stripped clean in front of an entire bank lobby. She walked through the polished floors with the security officers flanking her on either side. Every step echoed a quiet lesson she could not ignore. Meanwhile, Seagal was guided to a private office. The atmosphere was calm, almost surreal after the tension that had filled the lobby moments before. Sunlight filtered through the large windows, catching the dust in the air and creating a peaceful contrast to the chaos of moments earlier. Stephen took a seat, his posture relaxed but alert. The room felt ordered, safe, controlled. A bank representative approached with a new check, carefully prepared, verified, and ready for Stephen to sign. He accepted it without hesitation, signing his name with the same calm confidence he had displayed the entire afternoon. No triumph in his expression, no gloating smile. Only the quiet satisfaction of justice served. The employees in the office could not help but watch him. They had witnessed an extraordinary display of patience, restraint, and authority, and it was humbling. The kind of moment that makes ordinary people rethink assumptions about power and respect. Back in the lobby, the customers whispered among themselves. Some discussed the check. Some talked about the audacity of the manager. Some were still silent, processing the weight of what had occurred. Every eye had seen that quiet shift from arrogance to accountability. No one had raised a voice, yet everyone had been compelled to acknowledge who held real authority in that room. Stephen left the private office calmly. He did not demand an apology from the manager. He did not seek confrontation. He simply walked with dignity, his presence alone asserting the lessons of the day. No shouting, no threats, no revenge, just justice. The moral was clear and unmistakable. Respect everyone, even those who seem small or powerless, even those who wear authority like armor, because you never know who you are talking to. Power is not always loud. Respect is not always earned through fear. The quiet, disciplined, and controlled approach is often far more formidable than aggression or rage. The video of the incident, quietly recorded by a bystander, began circulating online the next morning. It spread not because of violence, not because of chaos, but because of the lesson it carried. People watched it over and over, pausing at the moments of silence, the subtle gestures, the calm authority that had dismantled arrogance without a single act of physical aggression. Comments filled social media feeds. This is how power should be handled. Respect is everything. Discipline beats ego every time. This incident became more than a bank story. It became a lesson in human behavior, a lesson in patience and control, a lesson in how dignity and calm resolve can overturn the expectations of a room full of people in minutes. The employees would remember it for years. The customers would tell the story for decades. Even the manager would carry the memory, though not gladly, as a permanent reminder of what happens when respect is ignored. Steven Seagal left the bank that afternoon as quietly as he had arrived. No media frenzy, no public confrontation, no dramatics, just a man who had demonstrated the undeniable strength of control over chaos, of dignity over ego, of patience over arrogance. Respect everyone. You never know who you are talking to. Type respect if you believe dignity matters more than status.